Hi there. In this series, I'm covering some ideas from my books, How to Be Miserable and How to Be Miserable in Your 20s. The point is that happiness just seems so difficult to achieve. It's this endless slog uphill. It's so much easier to just slide down into an emotional valley. So let's just go with that. I cover a lot of different strategies in these books, and most of them have a common feature. They're ways to feel miserable that are usually taught to us as ways to have a better life, not a worse one. So today, be well informed. This seems like a good idea. If you're going to make decisions about the world, about who to vote for, about reasonable precautions in your own life, about good directions to pursue, you're going to have to know what's going on. So what's the problem? Well, let me back up for a minute. I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist. A central principle of cognitive therapy is that our emotional life is governed in large part by what we pay attention to. It isn't what's actually going on that influences our mood. It's what we actually look at and what we make of that. So, if you've got 10 coworkers and you focus on the 8 of them that quite like you, you'll probably feel quite good at work. If you focus on the 2 that aren't so impressed, you're more likely to feel anxious and unhappy. The great thing about our misery quest is that our brains are designed to help out. The brain is essentially a problem-solving organ, and you can't solve a problem unless you know that it's there. So we've evolved a bias to look for problem areas in our lives and not to spend too much time focused on the things that are going well. So if there's food in the fridge and money in the bank and friends who love you and the sun is shining outside and there's a malfunctioning computer, you're going to spend a lot of time ignoring all the rest and fussing over that computer. This makes sense. If you're a primitive human and there are 5 water sources nearby and one of them has a tiger that eats people, you're supposed to remember that. If you forget, you're going to be dinner. If you develop the idea that one of the other sources also has a lion, but really it's perfectly safe, the cost isn't so bad. So we're more likely to develop negative biases and get caught up with danger signals than we are to pay attention to signals that all is well. When we get anxious or depressed, this natural tendency gets even more out of control. A big part of cognitive therapy is helping people to balance that out so we see things in a somewhat more even-handed way. We're trying to overcome the brain's inherent negative bias. So, fine. What's this got to do with staying well informed? Well, I've been saying that the brain has this built-in bias, but what if we could make it even stronger? What if we could hire 10,000 people whose job it is to fan out all over the world and look for even more bad stuff to tell us about? We'll give them cameras and websites and television networks devoted to showing you everything they turn up 24 hours a day. Essentially, this is the news media. And we're going to tell you that their job is to show you what's going on in the world. One of the things it'll tell you about is buses. Every day, 100,000 or more intercity buses leave their terminals and drive to their destinations. And almost all of them get there. One of them goes over a cliff and falls into a ravine, killing the people on board. Which bus are you going to hear about? The common or the rare? The fact that something is news means that it's a bit unusual. So it's not the goal to show you everything that happens. Imagine a news story that says, today at 10 a.m., a bus packed with tourists left the terminal in Buenos Aires and arrived at the beach in Punta del Este, Uruguay. Everyone was safe and they were quite pleased with the drive. In other news, a bus left Edinburgh, Scotland, and arrived in Glasgow. You would think that these reporters were high. It would be the most boring newscast ever. But one bus hits a tanker truck and explodes. That one you're going to hear about. So you're going to hear about it precisely because it's not representative of what usually happens. We can tell you about every bus crash on Earth, and because you never hear about buses in other countries that get to their destinations, it can seem like buses are hugely dangerous. They're always falling off cliffs. In fact, when you think about a lot of countries, it seems like nothing good ever happens there. It seems like a miracle that there's anybody still alive there. By telling you truthfully about these exceptional events, you can develop a more distorted picture than if you knew nothing at all. For example, if you hear about every shooting or child abduction that happens, and if your exposure to the news goes up so that you hear about them even more, then it will seem to you that shootings and abductions are becoming more and more common, even if really they're less frequent than they used to be. People's ideas about whether crime is getting worse or whether children are more in danger is based more on how these things get reported than on how common they actually are. A lot of people know exactly where they were when they heard about the events of September 11, 2001. Try asking them where they were on August 11th, 2001. No one has a clue. So we've got this internal filter going, where is the bad stuff? And now we've got an external filter as well doing exactly the same thing. But this one can go all over the world and find video footage they can show you within minutes of it happening. And to get to your eyes, they'll tell you it's breaking news. It's brand new. There's been an earthquake in Turkey and you have to know about it right now. Maybe that's good if you're in Turkey. But what if you're not? Why do you have to know about this within minutes? What difference does it make to your life? Well, maybe you could donate to the relief effort. But think about it. You're not going to do that. The earthquake only happened 10 minutes ago. You don't know how bad it was. You'll only know that tomorrow or at the end of the week. It does nothing for you or for anyone else to have you know the story before even the reporters on the ground know what's going on. While you've been listening to me, a cruise ship may have sunk off Alaska. Maybe you should go check. But if it did, what will that do for you? Nothing. Maybe eventually you'll think twice about booking a cruise, but you're not doing that right now. So it's pointless. What's the idea here? If you want to be miserable, it's actually quite simple. Pay close attention to the news constantly. Leave the television on, leave the network going. Make that a constant news feed into the periphery of your mind.